Welcome to the Founders Foyer with me, Aishwarya. This foyer is full of conversations, the space where creators, founders, and builders look for all the support and concepts to grow their ideas into products. If there's one phrase that's ruling all of our social media experiences today, it's OpenAI's GPT. It's amazing to see the wonders of large language models kick in with everyday user experience. And the best part is we're just getting started. Beyond exposing ourselves to a lot of these tools that spin out of I think as builders, it's important for us to dig deeper into understanding what the space of tech advancement could mean for us, especially from the lens of ethical tech, personalization, personification, API layers, user generated content, and so much more. And today, we'll be chatting all about this with Travis Fischer, AI researcher, entrepreneur, and software developer who has been working in this open source space for nearly a decade, previously also with stints at Microsoft and Amazon. Travis has built a bunch of OpenAI based projects and he loves working towards the passion economy, which I think we'll be digging deeper into as we have the conversation forward. So, hey, Travis, thank you so much for being here with me.
Oh, thank you, Aishwarya. Thank you for the lovely introduction. It's a pleasure to be here and have a conversation.
Likewise, I can't wait to get started because I think we're going to be discussing about something that is super hot and like the sort of the conversation just goes around on every single platform that we open. So can't wait to get started.
Yeah, I mean, AI is just it's everywhere. It seems to be happening so quickly, and there's an equal amount of excitement and dread, depending on where you fall on that spectrum.
Exactly.
So happy to dive into some of the details and also talk about kind of some of the practical side around the developers, founders, practitioners.
Yep, absolutely, which is exactly what we will be discussing today. So, why don't we start with how being an operator, founder, and now experimenting with a lot of AI based projects, how has your journey been so far? Like, we could start with what brought you into tech and like how did you discover all of these paths forward?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll give my quick kind of version of that. I mean, I got really my start in tech building open source TI calculator games back in high school. I didn't know it
Oh,
was
wow.
open source at the time, right? But it was like, oh, somebody passes around the game and you can hack on it. You can like check out the code and tweak things. And I just fell in love with it, right? That's how I got my start. Ended up studying computer science and math in college. Went on to work at Microsoft on some research operating system stuff for a few years, which it's great to learn like real software engineering at a big company and get that experience. At the same time, I was
Yeah.
always looking towards startups and the shiny thing, so left there in about 2011 to join a startup in New York. We ended up getting acqui-hired by Yahoo. That was a cool process, building a startup kind of from the ground up.
Mhm.
And since then, I've kind of had a couple of different founder journeys and worked all over the tech space. Moved to Thailand for 2 years, worked at
Oh,
a tech startup out there. I have two small exits under my belt that I'm very
mhm.
proud of. And these days, I'm really focused on two things. AI first and foremost, and open source. And open source is at the heart of everything that I do. I just believe very fundamentally in the power of open source in using it as
Mm.
a medium, a very efficient medium for affecting change and experimentation out there. And I think it goes hand in hand with AI. So, I'm building and playing around in the AI space, trying to figure out what's next.
Wow, that sounds so, refreshing to hear in terms of like playing around with tech and especially at the time when there's a lot of advancements and a lot of new things for us to venture into. And what makes me very happy about hearing your journey is how you've got this whole, learning foundations at Big Corp and trying to understand, okay, how does software engineering work? How do I build products? And then like going around and building something on your own and sort of also ending the story with a couple of exits. So I think it's like every chapter has been covered and you feel like every time you start it's kind of like a whole journey in itself and then you kind of feel more fuel for the next journey ahead. So it sounds like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I mean, the one thing I will say now that like I wish I understood as a younger version of myself is so much of the tech industry views going the venture route, creating a venture scale startup as
Hmm.
this thing which we hold on a pedestal, right?
Oh yeah.
And I know like that for a long time, I view that as like my definition of success, right? And I have a lot of friends
Mm.
who have gone and successfully built those type of companies, and I've tried to more than once, and to varying degrees of success. But it's in my view now, I think a lot of those young, ambitious developers, makers would probably be better off creating more calm businesses and
Mm.
trying to build a business that is actually profitable,
Mm.
creating something. Well, the thing that I didn't understand about the venture business model, for instance, is it really incentivizes a very specific type of business.
Mm.
And VCs are all about, well, I'm going to invest in 100 companies. I don't care if 98 of them die. I only care essentially about the one that is 1,000x value, right?
Mm.
Um, and I'm simplifying a lot there, but it introduces, I think, a lot of grow at all costs, perverse mentality type things for early founders that leads to issues with like mental health and
Yeah.
just going about things and building real sustaining value in a way that certainly for myself personally, that is incredibly difficult and also sometimes at odds with building real businesses. So yeah, but that's again personal opinion.
Yeah,
um
yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I think I would agree with you to say that there's also many other less traveled paths, or rather, I would say many interesting things that you could do beyond just looking at, okay, I want to start something. So it should be probably like bootstrap or just like venture backed. And there are multiple ways. And I think today's indie makers and today's creators have shown there are like multiple ways that you can take beyond these two much travel path that I would say. And
yeah.
especially at a time when micro SaaS and a lot of no code and low code projects are just coming up, I think these are all giving people the chances to say that okay, there's like so much to explore, there's so much to get your hands dirty on and try, and then like get that to be profitable. And one heartening thing for me to see is how the whole built-in public has made people to talk about some of their success and as well as the challenges as a part of this journey, right? And they get like a lot of help. Let's say today I'm just going to put out a tweet that says, hey, I'm just building this stuff and I think I'm kind of stuck here. I would love for you to give me more details here. And I think people are quite heartwarming. They're coming forward to help. Hey, I did this piece of code last week and like I could help you with this. And this is something that I have exposure on. So I think that that's sort of building on each other's ideas and like just getting very candid with, you know, what part of the learning journey that you're in and trying to just get people up there. I think that's more happening now, and it's like very very equivalent to what you were just mentioning in terms of like getting to a profitable path.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, you bring up. I was just writing down a few notes. Like you bring up a couple of great points, and I love the indie hacker community. The concept of micro SaaS. Uh, to give some context, the last startup that I founded was called Sassify, and that
Oh.
was in 2018. And the whole goal or my mission was really to try and help developers like myself make the transition from like I love hacking on stuff, I love building projects to hey, I have a profitable, sustainable side business, and that's a
Mm,
really hard transition to make.
it is.
Um, I from my own perspective, like I love open source. If I could spend all of my time doing one thing and kind of maximizing my like utility for putting value out into the world, I for me that's open source.
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge comes in that over time it becomes really hard
Mm,
to sustain that. You have responsibilities, you have a personal life, you have a family, and you need to justify why you're not working at big tech and making a good salary. These types of things, right, are very real trade-offs. And I have the
yeah.
opportunity to speak with a lot of developers, indie hackers, makers who are trying to make that transition.
Mm,
Ultimately, this goes back to my earlier point about the kind of venture route versus like the calm companies or portfolio of small bets. There are different terms for this. Micro SaaS is a great term as well. But I put all of that in the bucket of like not jumping on the VC hype train, just trying to build something kind of with a more well-defined, smaller focus that I think is, and the community aspect is huge.
Yep,
like
absolutely.
build in public, indie hackers, like part of it is what we're doing right now, right? Like I think the creator economy and folks like yourself who are helping to shine a spotlight on people's struggles, their journey, and creating a name for yourself kind of in the process is one just as equally like path to success, and just following your passion for doing this type of thing. I'd love to hear, why, a little bit about like I know it's kind of reverse interviewing, but a little bit about like why you're doing this, and I'm sure there's a good story there.
I was just gonna like side with you there and saying that me starting the Founders Foyer was just about the time when I, as a creator, when I was tinkering around with ideas, I kind of found that, hey, wait, I do have a lot of questions. And whenever I go to social media, I see people talking about, okay, here's how you scale things. Here's how you do 1x to 10x. Here's how you do all the grander parts of building products. But when it came to answering very simple questions, when it came to like just basically being, hey, I know this is silly, but then I would love for some help here, there was literally like no sort of a community or no sort of playbook to bank on when it came to working on early ideas, and especially as creators and developers building these micro SaaS products. And just as an example, I wanted to like create like a whole community or a space where you can like look up to conversations with such people who have like done more than scaling stuff. They've done something, they've worked on ideas, they've like sort of seen how the idea has grown from 0 to 1. So that was the base of why I started this. So like I can absolutely empathize with what you were just saying in terms of just wanting to solidify that community and sort of like build it one step at a time, and then get to the profitable stage at it.
Yeah, let's talk maybe. Sorry, I would love to hear your perspective on the community aspects. Like I know, when you look at like going the venture route, there are a lot of resources available. When you look at kind of doing the indie hackers, build in public, there's like Twitter, there's indiehackers.com. I throw GitHub in there as like a very valuable resource. I think
overlap oftentimes. There's Product Hunt. I would say like to an extent, it sort of lets you meet fellow hunters, fellow folks who are building out something, and just like trying to create that hype around and just bringing like a very close-knit community through discussion. So but yeah, huge fan of indie hackers, because I remember during my early days of working on no-code projects, I used to go up and read on a lot of these posts that people made in those respective groups, like trying to understand, okay, so these were the challenges for them, and it's pretty much like what I'm going through as well. So let me like just read it and get some basic idea on it.
100%. But that I still think there's a huge gap and need as more and more builders, especially young builders, realize that there's this path to independence, to the path less traveled, if you will, to building a sustainable kind of online digital identity, whether that's through micro SaaS, whether that's through creating content, and then the kind of creating info products or there's all these different paths to monetization around it, but it starts from like putting yourself out there, and there's a big need though for resources to help focus on that.
No, I think the need part, as you say, is so real, because there's only like incrementing a number of people who keep entering into the space and who would want to explore and do a lot of things. So now that we're talking about being an indie hacker or like trying to I remember there was this investor Legion who spoke about passion economy, and it's also something that you often quote. So now that we're in this cusp of doing something that's more profitable as well as like very fruitful for the purpose that we're working on, what do you foresee as challenges that are still not addressed, aside from the fact that we need to have a lot of content, a lot of cognition around, okay, this is what we're supposed to work towards. What else do you see as challenges in the path, especially for folks who would now want to move from a big corp kind of a job and like, trying to do something on their side or trying to turn this into a full-time career?
It's a great question. I love that you mentioned Legion. She's one of my favorite people. I don't know her
Mine as well.
personally, but like I just look up to her a lot. Passion Economy is awesome. She's done a lot of work for kind of being a role model and pushing that forward, both as a voice as well as just personifying a lot of what
Mhm.
she's advocating for. Uh, Talking about what are the main problems, and also what are the main problems that people focus or will encounter trying to enter into the creator or the passion economy. I think that the number one on my radar is the fact, like the power law of success. So
Mm.
pretty much every centralized platform, YouTube, Spotify, podcasts, whatever type of content you create, whatever platform you end up choosing to distribute your content on, there is almost universally a kind of power law associated with the amount of revenue and the amount of success that you end up getting. So what I mean by that is like the top 0.1% or top 1% of creators get 99% of the revenue. And then it's not that everyone else gets nothing. It just tapers off very, very quickly. And that, if you were to extrapolate that and you think about, well, if more and more people are moving to this kind of world in the future, that doesn't bode well uh, for kind of equality.
Mm.
and it'll just make the inequality problem
Yeah,
even
the
more.
needle is just stop on one side, and then there's this. I think this is very similar to what we face with big tech as well, right? There's always like a an authoritative kind of a brand that's just like taking up most of the revenue, and there's like monopoly in that space, and the rest of it is basically like being accrued or like being just like acqui-hired on, and there's always like one particular thing that's like
Yeah.
top on the big tech side. So yeah.
Yep. And so that's a very, very important problem that you should at least be aware of kind of entering into
Mhm.
this space, that this exists, in terms of ways to help remedy it.
Mhm.
um this brings me to this like second big problem is the problem of platform risk. So if you
Okay.
choose to be a YouTube creator or a Twitter creator, and
Mm.
I have a great example of this that's relevant. You're investing a lot on this platform and your fate as a business, as a creator, is really in their hands. So
Yeah.
one thing that we and a lot of other folks encourage people to do early and often is to try and own your audience, meaning
Mm.
instead of just having followers, try to transition those followers to an email list, which is kind of a neutral party that, regardless of if Twitter, jacks up their API prices by 42,000%, or if, just a
Yeah.
hypothetical, uh, or if, say YouTube were to ban you or something, like there's a lot to be said for having control, or some aspect of control over your audience and having direct communication with them.
Mm.
You obviously want to still use these huge platforms for the distribution that they give, because you can't
Mm.
really beat it. But it's a kind of an existential risk when you put all your eggs in that one basket.
Right. Yeah, no, I think it sounds more like get your own format of success, like define your own format of success, because this market is like, it's more like a crowded market. They're like everybody wants to be a creator. So obviously when you're trying to make that move, try to define your own metrics in terms of, okay, what makes success for you and how would you want to monetize it? And like you said, the second one being just like think about the angle of sustainability. How would your content or whatever you build go beyond what the platform rules would be, like basically like de-risking the whole thinking about the platform first approach.
Oh, absolutely. And if you're just getting started in that,
Hmm.
like there's definitely a kind of trade-offs and tension between, hey, I just want to build something, or I'm interested in this problem, I just want to go explore it,
Mm.
versus the other side, which is like creating content and putting it out there and feeling like that's a job. And you don't have to do both, right? There are benefits to both of those, and you can
Mm.
go like really hard, like 95% in the building and making, and be like 5%, I'm going to share it on Twitter, or whatever your favorite platform is, but I do think that's important to have a balance there, and to understand the trade-offs of that balance, because it can
Right.
feel overwhelming to feel like, Packy McCormick, a writer who I admire, has this saying that we're all part of the great online game, right? And we're all
Yeah.
playing this never-ending, infinite game, of attention seeking and all this, and that's, it's an important thing to realize, and like kind of it flips your mentality of understanding a lot of this stuff. And
Mm.
one, it's like it's a positive some game. It's not like, I get more viewers and you get less viewers. It's like that's a really bad way of doing
Yeah.
this stuff, right? It's
Yeah.
more like a a rising tide lifts all boats, and just even having some online presence of sharing your work and getting it out there, and asking for help from people, and just starting that is
Mm.
is huge, and has huge compounding effects over time. um yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a very important point. I'm so glad that you brought it forward, Travis. And I think this whole with so many people trying to contend for people's attention as well. I think somewhere I've seen how mimicking easily gets to be one of those traps that we fall into, where we say, oh, that creator is doing this, so I think I might also want to just do that, so I can like go ahead and I go through the same journey, get the same thing. But that's exactly not suiting your style or the kind of path that you want to take. So I've also seen like examples where I guess until like a few years ago, people used to say that about AI, and even now a lot of people still have that skepticism about AI. They say, okay, well, AI is just doing this, and there's like a lot of buff around it. So should you really have to pivot yourself to put in AI? Should you do this? Should you do that? So I think somewhere, well, mimicking is good, but at the same time, I think it's important to like keep aside like a boundary to know, okay, where this makes more sense for you and this doesn't make sense for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great point. I think the single most important thing, or attribute that all
Mm.
successful creators have. It doesn't matter whether you're on YouTube or TikTok, or you're a software developer, or you're a founder, is you have to be genuine. Like
Right.
you have to sincerely come from a place of caring,
Mm-hmm.
and about going about things the right way. And it's because people see it, right? Like you can tell when somebody is not being sincere, or when they're kind of like half-hearted, or when they're deliberately ripping off someone. If you
Yeah.
speak your own true voice about whatever you're really passionate about, and you follow that passion wherever it takes you, and there's some tactics that help along the way. The biggest one would be just like learning in public, right? And not learning in your own head, but getting out there. It doesn't have to be perfect, like just sharing as you go, and you're going to meet other people who kind of have overlap in what they're passionate about, and
Yeah.
build relationships. It's just that's the way to do it. If you like a good example, is Mr. Beast's brother.
Mm-hmm.
Had created a YouTube video, very much the same format as his brother, and had every advantage in terms of built-in distribution and
Mm-hmm.
resources and everything. But it was really just Mr. Beast's light, and it wasn't
Right.
his own, right?
I see your
And
point.
it's fine,
Yeah.
right? Like he was trying to jump from like, I don't know who I want to be as a creator, to I have a full identity that's like Mr. Beast's brother, in like all in one step, right? And that's hard. Like you gotta start. You gotta start by putting feelers out there, start by learning along the way, and over time you'll develop an identity of like,
Mm.
this is who you are, this is the voice, the way of describing myself that resonates with people. And hopefully, you're building value, and whether it's products or content or whatever along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, I think that's very important as well. And I remember we had KP Kartik Povada on the show like a few weeks back, and he's somebody who's built a lot of projects in public as well. And we were chatting about a very similar concept of how it's important to personify and like try and understand how do you want to contribute. Like as much as there's learning in public, it's also important that you decide your identity and try to like first make sure that you know what you really want to put out for the audience, because you are trying to gain the attention of the audience, so which means like you have to like put out value. So it's important to understand what kind of value you want to associate yourself with. So yeah, I think that's a very important point, especially when you're making that transition.
Yeah, the point is of kind of this visual, which really drives it home, is the journey is going to take a long time to
Hmm.
bear fruit, but there's compounding value over time. And I know at different parts of my journey, even today, sometimes I wake up and I just feel like, what am I doing, right? Or I lose a little bit of my motivation. And it's great that's where like having building relationships and building community comes in. It also is great to find some modicum of success, whether that's social success or financial success, around some of these things to keep you motivated. But it's just important to realize that it's not going to happen overnight. And but the core of finding your voice, finding the type of content that you want to create that is unique. It doesn't have to start off as unique, but over time you
Yeah,
kind of find a unique version of it,
totally.
uh pays off over time.
Yeah, that's no, I think that's exactly where we've got to hit the right nail and understand what really works for us. And I think over time, like you mentioned, you can always get better at what you do, but it's important to start at the place of authenticity and trying to like just do what you're really good at, or what kind of value you can really provide at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh,
absolutely.
I think let's shift gears a bit into AI and your work in the open source and how both of these meet together. So I know you just built Twitter bot based out of OpenAI's GPT, and you've like just crossed about 100K followers on Twitter. So it's
Yeah.
amazing to see that journey. And I also know for a fact that there was this one particular incident where you had a lot of users from China trying to use your particular project to describe a Twitter user with a specific username, and this had like crazy engagement. So, why do you think people are just so interested with this personalized content in AI? Like, why do you think people would want to, particularly focused on getting content about another person or like trying to personify things? And how do you see this?
It's a great question. I mean, I think there's multiple angles there. So there's the kind of like open source. I can give a little bit of context on different AI projects that I've built there. The Twitter bot being a good example. There's the question about why has it seems like now it's suddenly just exploded, right? ChatGPT
Hmm.
released November 30th, 2022. It was the single fastest consumer product to get to 1 million users, and then 100 million active users ever, like faster than
Yeah.
TikTok, faster than Spotify, faster than any product that's ever existed. And this was to a large extent a surprise even for OpenAI, right? Like OpenAI is really an infrastructure developer tools company. They did not expect to be this super successful
Yes.
consumer. Um, and so to some degree, I think, the question is a little bit, why now? Why has AI taken hold over and entered into just the mainstream? Um,
Hmm.
so why, are there like different types of use cases for AI that seem to work really, really well, and others
Yeah,
are lagging behind. Maybe I'll start with the open source just to give context about like my view on
sure.
this stuff. And so I already said, like, ChatGPT launched, kind of the people in the tech bubble were like already like on top of it. I was super on top of it and excited about it. And a couple of days later, I released an API wrapper, unofficial API wrapper, that allowed developers to create experiments, projects, hacks on top of it, and integrate it into existing programs. So
Hmm.
the ChatGPT NPM package, any JavaScript, TypeScript developer could create an app powered by ChatGPT. And to be clear, since a couple months after that, OpenAI released an official API, and I'm focusing on the official API now. But in the early days, it really unlocked a lot of really interesting hackers to just build cool stuff, right? And this would be like Chrome extensions, VS Code extensions, Telegram bots, WeChat bots. There were literally hundreds of these things that were built on top of either my kind of API wrapper, or
Mm.
I run a Discord community called the ChatGPT Hackers, chatgpthackers.dev, if you want to join. But we have about 7,500 developers, AI
Oh,
enthusiasts, hackers
cool.
there now. And the other admins and I, the one thing we all have in common is we all built these kind of AI wrapper or API wrappers for ChatGPT in the early days. So there's like
Hmm.
the Python, API guy, there's the Go API guy, and then I'm on the Node.js, JavaScript, TypeScript side. And it's just been fascinating. Like, it took off like I've been doing open source for 15 plus years, and I've never seen an open source project take off like this, just
Yeah.
because I think for a few reasons. Like, one, we've just crossed an inflection point with how usable these models are. To some degree, the large language models powering ChatGPT have been around for a few years, and really
Hmm.
the impetus was this 2017 paper called "Attention is All You Need," but it's taken time to really uh, scale the models to a point and productionalize them. There's this great visual that I where you can kind of imagine these large language models as this like uh this blobular alien that even AI researchers don't totally understand how it works. Like, it really is an alien form of intelligence. It's a different. It has some type of intelligence. It's different from human intelligence, so it's hard
Mm.
for us to kind of we project this personification to try to understand it, right, in the way.
Mm.
Um, but it's doing something that's fundamentally different from how humans think. And then there's like this little mask that's got a smiley face on the front of this globular alien creature, and that's RLHF. That's reinforcement learning with human feedback, and that's
Yeah.
that's the piece that makes it like optimized for using with humans in conversations, right? I like that visual because it reminds me that even the most like sophisticated AI researchers, to varying degrees,
Mm.
really don't understand this black box. Like, yeah, they
Yeah.
understand how to build the box, they understand the different components and how to test the box, and but there's large parts of that black box that are just unclear.
Mm.
However, we've gotten to a point where you can now build applications with these really powerful, large language models that are usable for my mom, right? Or
Yeah.
usable for kind of the average person, and it's past an inflection point of
Yeah.
power and usability. Um, and whether it's a kind of ChatGPT API wrapper or the ChatGPT Twitter bot, which I built on top of
Mm.
that. And the thousands of other cool and interesting projects that are going on in this space, that it's a little bit overwhelming being in it because it's moving so quickly. And
Yeah.
but I'm excited to be playing around in the sandbox, and I learn by building, and I learn by
Yeah.
building public, and a lot of everything that I do is open source on GitHub. um yeah, we could dive into any number of follow-ups to that, but that gives a little bit
Yeah.
of context
Yeah. Oh,
My
sure.
my
Yeah.
take on
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
No, no, absolutely. I think I loved how you mentioned about how the LLMs still being there as these huge aliens, but then there's still a lot of parts that I would say we're just discovering only now. You know, AI has been there for like such a long time. It's very resonating because this is the exact point that I made to one of my friends, and when we both were chatting about why do you think AI's GPT just kicked off with people? So I think it's sort of democratized the whole usage. Like it's made the user experience as the top gear as opposed to the actual model. So when people chat with it, I think they forget the fact that it's a model. Like it's the same thing that probably LLMs could do even in 2017, 2018. But the fact that something has been condensed and the whole user experience has been made in such a way that I could just let my grandma go and type something there and it's like it's going to like really work. So I think that
Yeah.
sort of user experience is what made chat gpt as something that even a school kid would know now, or something even like a senior citizen could easily like follow and try to say, oh, I read about this, and it's like all on news channels or media and social media and all of these places. So I think the fact that we are getting more closer to uh, taking something as complex as this and then trying to use human feedback and input into how can you make this more comprehensible. Like I read somewhere that we are making a wave shift from what is called as AI to what is called as AGI, which is artificial general intelligence, like trying to get more closer towards how a human brain would think, like how would like a human reasoning perform, and like trying to get more closer towards that. So I think, yeah, I would definitely attribute to what you just mentioned about the whole user experience being transformed, and that's exactly one way that our shift has been moving towards.
I mean, you bring up AGI, which stands for artificial general intelligence, is a huge, huge topic. We're not there yet. That's not just me saying that. That's like
It's just like
most
getting to
kind of
it, but yeah.
AI practitioners. We're getting ever closer. It's kind of this existential question around, well, if we pass that panopticon, like it's opening Pandora's box to some degree, and we don't, a lot of known unknowns, unknown unknowns past that point. I want to jump back to I think something a little more grounded that you touched on, which is uh these large language models like ChatGPT. They use natural language, and natural language, whether you speak English or Hindi or Japanese or whatever language you speak, is how humans reason and think about things. It's powerful because it is natural for us, right?
Yeah.
Natural language, and it unlocks. We're at the very early stages of even beginning to understand how much it's going to unlock when natural language can be our interface to using computers to augment ourselves. For a long time now, programmers have had superpowers, essentially, right? Like by creating programs which are very formal, archaic ways of describing to a computer like exactly what to do, a formal
Mm.
specification. And there's different programming languages, just like there are different human languages, but they all boil down to, like, it's a very specific specification for describing what you want a computer to do in different circumstances. Well, now, instead of needing to know all the details of programming, you can start to control computers just by talking in a natural way and saying, hey, I would love, I'm looking for tickets to go travel to Jamaica. I think
Mm.
this is my budget. I think that I want to go in March. Is that a good time? And kind of have a natural conversation. I think the kind of chat GPT like style chat version of
Mm.
that, where you're typing it into a box and you're getting some chat output, that's like the V1 of what this is going to unlock. There's going to be so much work now at the application layer around cool and interesting and wacky
Yeah.
like UX and design ways to integrate this. But the key unlock is that it's using natural language that's so
Mm.
expressive, that's so simple, it's going to take something that was a superpower for like less than
Yeah.
1% of the population programmers and unlock a lot of that for, the 99% of the population, which is huge.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you made a very, very powerful thought here. And the fact that we took a leap from writing algorithms, writing programs that the computer would understand, like in the language that the computer would understand, to trying to make the computer understand in the language that we speak, or like the language that we converse with. I think that's like the whole leap that we've made in the last 2 to 3 decades, that I would say. And it's only unlocking the power of where we're heading towards, because now, especially with OpenAI trying to make a lot of plugins and all of that being built on top of this application layer. I think the whole like how you had the Web 2 and then Web 3, and there was like a defining moment for each of the years that we passed through. I think a lot of people would now be opened up to what we call as API, which is like just been the nut and bolt of what you work with SaaS for like these many decades. But now there's a lot more recognition of, oh, I know what API is, I know what API could do. And this whole, oh, I'm going to build an application layer right now, is going to, I guess, like define the journey of a lot of startups over the next whole decade, because the number of applications in terms of both like as products and also as purpose to be solved, I think it's definitely like numerous to think about. So yeah.
I mean, one good analogy is if you look back at the early days of computers,
Mhm.
like Intel released the CPU, and that was this groundbreaking new computing platform, right? And it unlocked all these things. But it wasn't until these guys like Steve Jobs and Wozniak came along and built, an
Yeah.
operating system on top of it at the application layer. And obviously Apple is now the most valuable company in the world, right? So not that the CPU guys, not that the lower level guys didn't also have an amazingly successful business, but I think what we're going to see is a very similar thing happen over the next couple of years now. And
Yeah.
if you the large language models and OpenAI being a major player there, but there are also other foundational
Yep.
kind of models,
Yep.
Anthropic, Claude, um, Stability AI,
Llama. Yeah.
Google Llama. There's a ton. They're always coming out. A lot of it is noise. Like you don't need to follow everything there, but like just knowing that there are these large language models that form this basis for essentially like you can think of it as a new like type of CPU, right? It's a new
Mhm.
logic primitive, and there will be Apple type companies that build on top of it,
Mm.
that use it to build an operating system, that use it to build consumer applications, business applications that are going to unlock enormous value. And if you talk to anyone who is confident that they know what that's going to look like, stop listening to them. because we don't, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's prototypes, there's demos, there's some early kind of interesting products that are coming out that I think
Yeah.
are trying to
Yeah.
merge like great user experience, great design with the power of these things. But we're in the
Mhm.
early days.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's more like a day zero for most of these things. In fact, I was like, as an artist myself, I was extremely intrigued when ControlNet was launched, and I was like, oh, so I can basically like do sketches and just transform them into an actual image that can be generated, and that's like cool. That's like, yeah, I played with DALI, that was good, but I think ControlNet takes this whole model to just an up level where I can do a lot more. And like I said, each day you sort of like try to see, oh, there's people playing around with it. Like there's a lot of papers being published, there's a lot of uh, algorithms being formed, and these are all like playful experiments. So the fact that most of these are like open playgrounds, and you can do a lot, and like basically like keep sharing this and make other people take visibility of it, is it's just so exciting.
Yeah. I mean, just maybe two quick points to add to that. Like, when the AI progress is kind of happening exponentially right now, and
Hmm.
it can feel overwhelming, and it can feel like there's just
Yes.
like it's hard to follow everything, and it is, right? Even for people who are really in it, you don't need to follow everything, right? Like to simplify, there's kind of like the research and foundational layer that's going on,
Hmm.
that is yeah, like the number of papers that are coming out, the number of models, the number of companies and products that are coming out is mind-boggling. Kind of at a layer above that, there's, well, now that we have these new tools, or in my case, I view them more as well, now that we have these new toys, what can we build with them, right? And I'm just playing. I'm literally just playing around in that I call it a sandbox, and experimenting and learning kind of as I go. And I think that is a good mindset to have about this stuff. Like if you see something
Yeah.
that strikes your eye, is like, oh man, like what will control that unlock for me, or something, like go and play with it, and you're going to learn along the way. It helps to build and play with, bringing this back to our early conversation, to kind of share a little bit of what you're learning, and then build relationships, build a tribe of other people who are learning about this stuff. But don't worry if you're not on top of the latest and greatest. Almost nobody is. It's just you
Yeah.
and yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Uh,
think that's a very, very fair point because there's like, I think initially, how it started on Twitter was, oh my God, like there's this open AI, there's GPT. And that was like week one, week two was, okay, there are like more apps. And week three was like, okay, can people please stop talking about this? Like, it's just getting too much overwhelming. And there's like
yeah.
one school of thought that's basically like, okay, would AI replace us? Like our jobs are gone, blah, blah, blah. Like there's this whole one school of thought that's going on that side. But I think I also noticed a very interesting thing, which is the Future of Life Institute had just started like a whole petition around, okay, let's just like put a halt to the pace of how, AI is just advancing right now, because it's like, I mean, as much as it's like a playground and it's super exciting to see how this is getting advanced, there's also this fear about, okay, I think we just can't keep it very unharnessed because we don't know what the repercussions could be, or like, just keeping it at without like understanding what the boundary should be is quite scary. So I think one of my next questions to you is more around that, because let's face the fact, we did see how Sydney of Bing was like getting hallucinated and like trying to take on the whole personification, and that's like being harnessed right now. So with a lot of ethical boundaries that we still need to handle in this advancement of AI at this current point in time, how do you think ethics plus this advancement can come together, and like this whole fear as a factor, how do you think this can be controlled?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ashwar. It's a fundamentally new technology in a lot of ways, and anytime there's new technology, there's going to be a lot of fascinating and useful, good use cases for it, but people will
Mm-hmm.
also find ways to abuse it and use it for not the best purposes. The one thing with AI that is because it's so powerful, and its ability to misinform or misrepresent, or create deepfakes, or any
Mm.
number of kind of misinformation type things is high up there. Scams, like you can get a call from someone, and it seems like it's a real person, that type of thing. um that those things will happen, like kind of
Mm.
regardless of any to a certain extent, they will happen, right? um
Mm.
we can try to be as a community, push the major players, the major APIs towards good safeguards and things, and maybe regulations at some point down the line comes into play. If I'm being honest, like we saw the congressional hearings around the TikTok CEO, and just hearing the type of questions that senators were asking him, that just showed a basic like misunderstanding
Yeah.
of how technology works for TikTok. Now imagine that the same type of hearings for AI, like
Mm.
it would just be a laughing stock, right? So I'm not convinced necessarily that our government is in a place where it would be a value add to bring them into the picture or regulate. um it is concerning, like just to
Mm.
talk about the letter and the kind of pause or stop AI movement. um it is worth at least I think that the main thing that brings up is the conversation, and bringing more of that conversation and awareness of the potential downsides of what continued expanding AI research at all costs, it could lead to is useful. Like, people should be aware and should be having a
Right.
conversation and discourse around this. The practical side of that particular petition is non-existent. Like, it's just the economic incentives and wheels driving AI research and things, both at the geopolitical level, between US and China, or any other international entities, and also at the just domestic, like how economics 101 works, is just it's impossible to stop those wheels, but it
Yeah.
is immensely useful to try and have conversations like we're having right now,
Yeah.
and add to the public discourse around, this is we're Satya Nadella from Microsoft, on the positive view of all this, recently said that we're going through an industrial revolution for
Yeah.
the knowledge workers. So if you imagine, back in the Industrial Revolution, if you were a farmer or something, like, the Industrial Revolution greatly affected you. It made our society as a whole significantly more productive and helped to bring us to where we are today. But it had downsides, right? And a lot of people were that they lost their jobs and they had to shift, but it also opened up new jobs. And there's going to be a lot
Yeah.
of that happens here. The specifics aren't as clear yet. It's just happening very, very quickly, and also a very sped up version of that, which has risks.
Right.
And then everything that we're talking about, there's this like giant line of like AGI, which is oftentimes not well defined, but kind of some type of superhuman intelligence. The general part of AGI, meaning it like all AIs today are what are known as like narrow AI. They're trained and they're very good at doing one thing and one thing really well. Give me some text, I'll give you some text output, that
Yeah.
type of thing. Now, GPT-4, some of the latest models are showing,
Like
they're
cross
able to do
content, like
yeah, exactly. They're multimodal to some extent. They're starting to do a wider range of tasks, but they still can't just like do anything, right?
yeah.
And the line where you get to start talking about AGI, which in my view is the general intelligence that, given any task, can kind of execute it at a human type level, or superhuman AGI, which kind of goes beyond that.
Yeah.
There were a lot of unknowns past that point, where it's just a big
Absolutely.
question mark. And like, we should be having a conversation. If we're racing towards something that could annihilate us, like, yes, we should absolutely talk about it. But I don't know, right? Like, I just, from a practical standpoint, it's frustrating because I just don't know what we can actually do.
Yeah.
It's one
Do
thing
about it.
I mean, what do you think? Like, I don't know.
No,
It's
I think
important, but I don't know.
it is important. And I think as a question myself, like, I would completely agree with you there. The fact that these are questions that should be raised, and like, it's good that we are cognizant of such debates that come up, because as much as we try to invest our efforts into something that is more like a defining moment for the next decade or two, these are some of those. It's like basically like trying to understand what risks could come along with it. And you since you brought this context about Microsoft, I would also see, when I was hearing out Steven Sinofsky from Microsoft, and like he was also trying to make this point that we are at a very, very early stage with AI, where you should treat it more like a toy, like where you're like, oh, I do this and you give me this output. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. So I'm tweaking this, and like, now you're giving me this in output. That's great. But like, the mindset shift is also very important. Like, treat it the way that we are just at the cusp of something beginning, and you need to like oftentimes take all of these risks into matter, but don't look at it like as though that's like the end point of it. Like, don't look at it like this has been discovered and like, oh my god, like this is a huge threat. it is a threat, but then like there's like this is when this is the beginning. The threat is definitely going to be like a long lane forward, and then you have like more inputs to discover and try to see how to address that threat in the long term. But like trying to stop something at the pace at which it's just getting started or just getting ignited might probably like not take us anywhere in the next let's say
It's
a couple of years, because
yeah.
like I would say like 10 years ago, we had, I guess our context with AI has been from the early 50s, 60s. And, when we had this whole R&D part in every big corporate where you had folks working with AI. And probably like we didn't give it the whole form and shape and name as it is now, but we've always had work going on in AI. But I think until even a decade ago, we would not have thought that LLMs is going to shape this whole future forward for us. So
Yeah,
even when
it's
Transformer,
surprised. Sorry,
yeah,
I just it's a great
no, no,
point.
no, no.
Like maybe giving a little bit of context around how AI has developed over time. So as you said, a lot of the concepts around AI and even a lot of the primitives like neural nets, have been around since the 80s or even earlier forms since the 50s. Like Alan Turing,
Yep.
one of
Yeah.
the fathers of modern computing, created the Turing test because he kind of anticipated the ability
Yes.
for a computer to mimic a human and started thinking about, well, what are the implications of that? How would you kind of detect that? I think we're well past
Yeah,
the
we
place
had
for a
Alice
lot
and
of
all of these chatbots back then. Like
yeah.
I remember as much as like OpenGPT is right now.
Yeah. So like thinking about the grander scale of AI progress, like there for a long time, um, there were multiple AI winters, right? So that like the progress went like this, and then it went like this, and it kept going up and down, right? And right now, it's kind of since 2017, 2018, but especially like a hypersense since last this past fall, the last 6 months or so, AI progress has been going like this, right? And it's exponential, and we're no longer in AI winter. Now we're in AI summer, and it's like who knows what. But to be clear and to just tamper expectations, it could end up tapering off, and we find we're at kind of a local optimum,
Yeah.
and then we kind of get. But even if the AI progress, the base AI progress itself didn't continue, and we kind of got to a local optimum, the application side of what the current AI progress unlocks in terms of building end user applications and things is still going to push us, propel us forward for the next I don't know 5 years at least, like
Yeah.
of unlocking those possibilities. But we might not be at a local optimum. It might keep going up, right? And that's
It
the
could.
side of things
Yeah.
that gives researchers pause, that gives people who are thinking deeply about the philosophical, about the realistic implications of these things.
Completely with you on that. And like I think we should keep asking those questions, so there's there's no going back on, hey, I mean, there's one thing to completely ignore these questions and say, well, there's all of this advancements coming through, let me just like go build and like look at advancements. That's not going to work also, because we need to somewhere bring in the ethical part into question. We need to keep raising up what are the threats that we could potentially get into. So I think both of these would go hand in hand. I mean, to the question that you were like asking me in terms of my opinion, I think we have to keep raising these questions up, but not completely hinder the way AI performs at this current point in time. So like, of course, I don't have like a concrete like a direction towards, okay, should we like completely stop the pace of where AI is going towards, because I think we have unleashed a bit of the application layer that we were just talking about, where we have shown people the power of what it means to build on top of this. So I guess now there's a lot of if the pace has to go on like a very stabilized mode or a little slower, I think it only happens when each of those builders would start raising this question themselves. Like they try to understand, okay, my purpose of building on top of AI is not going to be for the fad, but it's going to be mostly towards like solving for a certain purpose, and like trying to ask these questions myself and try to see, oh, okay, what part of the data am I using, or am I exposing something, and is it in the longer run going to be causing a threat? So I guess
Yeah.
the pace is something that can be controlled only by the controllers who are just going to be building on top of this layer. So
yeah, and I mean, like great points. The way that I think about this as a builder, and maybe just a few points of advice for other developers or people who are building on top of AI.
mm,
The majority of the safety valves and the alignment research and the on that side of things is going to happen at the foundational layer, which unless you have basically
strong
billions of
foundation.
dollars and are a company that like OpenAI or one of their competitors, you're really not going to be competing at that layer, right? So what we're probably the majority of us are talking about is building things on top of the foundational layer. To give
Yeah.
you one concrete example, OpenAI finished training their most recent large language model called GPT-4 in August of 2022, and they spent
Mm,
the next 6 months sitting on it and iterating and fine tuning it based off of and doing red teaming where people come in
exactly.
and
I
try to
was,
jailbreak it and
yeah.
really trying to make sure that it's quote unquote safe. Now that's not a fail-safe process. I know that they care a lot about it. I know that at the foundational layer there are attempts to align these foundational models. But what a lot of us are looking at is okay, well, we have these new tools, these new toys, and we want to build and experiment and build stuff on top of them. There are going to be people that use them in an ethical way, like hopefully you and I, that are trying to build to just one, learn and two, try to build things that are useful for people. And there will always be in society people who say, well, what can I do, to subvert elections, or what can I do to hurt this person's image, or
Yeah.
what can I do to make money in a nefarious way or something. I guess just going back to talking about advice for developers and makers in this space. To the extent that you build things, obviously try to keep it good for humanity. Because and if you, I know myself, I have a huge list of ideas to explore, and one of the filters that I try to I try to apply before executing on any of them is asking, like, how could this be abused?
Yeah.
And it's a very good thing to be keeping in the back of your mind or the front of your
Yes.
mind, as we all play in that
Hmm.
sandbox. But
Yep.
as to some extent, like, that sandbox it has very leaky edges, and there will be people who find them and abuse them.
Mm,
It's part of any technological development.
yeah.
I don't think that we should stop all development because of that,
Yeah.
but the
Just keeping an
stopping the
eye on
development,
that.
the stopping the development side is really more about, like, the potential implications of AGI, versus the like
Mm,
ethical side of how these things will be
for
potentially
sure.
abused. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. No, I think great points there, and very similar thoughts in terms of we can't. I mean, we have to control it, but the controlling part does not mean that we have to stop things right away and just like say, okay, there are leaky edges. Let me just like stop pouring everything into it and like then look at leaky edges, because by then it's just going to like all get watered down and diluted. So I guess
I'm curious, Aishwar. You've been doing such a good job asking me questions. What are you excited about? As a content creator, and also as a professional in the industry, to use AI or experiment with AI. What have you seen that gets you excited?
Yeah. So for me, I think a lot of what we were just discussing about is even when I was coming up with questions for you in terms of talking about the space, I think both as like somebody who's building a product as a part of my day job, and like also somebody who's being like a creator because of my passion towards it. I feel AI is definitely this defining moment right now in terms of like trying to understand, okay, there are parts of it that could be like if you have to look at it more from a very SaaS lens, it's like a lot of it could be automated, a lot of it could like get me. I love this word called copilot, because more than it being like a functioning thing, I think copilot to me brought a lot of liberation in terms of, okay, so now I think my access to information, or my the way I look at consuming information is going to definitely be redefined. Because as much as like we go and search for information when it comes to, let's say, documenting stuff or like trying to learn about a new subject, there was always like one singular way of doing it. There was always like, okay, let me just go to the search engine, put stuff up there, and like whatever it's going to like throw at me, let me just go and like look through like 10 things and then figure out what's the best for me. So for me, the fact that I know this is like a very little bit of a controversial take as well, but a lot of people, were saying, but okay, I think you keep asking. Let's take GPT for example. Like let's take OpenAI. You keep putting this up, these questions up. It's going to give you answers, and basically like what really are you learning? But for me, I think when I started using Bing Chat a lot, and when I started using OpenAI a lot with GPT, the fun part for me was it works the way your mind works, in the sense that you get good at asking questions, it's going to give you like good answers. Like you get very fine tuning with what you want. Like it makes you really question to yourself that, okay, wait, is this really what I want? Because if you're not going to like be giving very specific things to it, your expectations of getting the right answer, or your expectations of getting something more appropriate is actually not going to be very like in line with it. So for me, the fact that this opens up a whole line of thought for me in terms of okay, it's simplifying the job, that's one way to look at it. But now I'm getting more clear about, why do I want to be using it, or what do I want to be using it for? And there are times that I probably fail at it. I'm like, oh, I think when people say prompt engineering is an actual job, I kind of feel that a lot now, because the more specific I get, the more information that I know how to tweak and get through it. I think it's definitely going to like work that way for me. So that part of it sounds very interesting to me, because it's giving me a very different lens of viewing, how do I want to learn about new kinds of information, how do I want to consume information. And at the same time, like I'm looking at it more as a co-pilot for myself, where I kind of try to say, okay, so the other day, the fun part was I was trying to ask Bing, okay, so I'm just going to like organize like a heritage walk from, these 10 locations that I have. Now, if I have to start from a random location, just like order these places for me in terms of the, closest vicinity to walk through. And just based on the couple of places that I gave, it gave me like okay, I think you have to start at this place. You have to take, you have to go to this place next, because in terms of distance, this is the most proximity, part to it. And then it gave me like a whole, reasoning to what I asked the question for. And if I was not very specific about what I want, and I don't think I'm going to be getting that kind of a very specific answer. So I think my lens has towards information search and towards consuming information and radically like playing around with ideas has changed a lot. So
Yeah, I mean, you bring up some amazing points. I like the co-pilot angle of, instead of AI replacing humans, it will augment humans, right? It is a tool
yes,
that will make you more efficient if you know how to use it, right? And that goes back to the prompt engineering. And if you haven't played around with this stuff, or if you only have done it and you're like, oh, this is cool, but like it's a little bit of a toy, I get it. The next time that you run into a problem at work, or you run into a problem where you're like, I don't know how to solve this, you go to Google. For instance, the other day I was like, I need to send a programming thing. I need to send mail from a cron job, right? And I was like, I tried to Google it, and you just get all of this crap, because specifically the mail, in search can mean like, the mail client on Mac OS or Gmail or whatever, right?
yeah,
Search
yeah,
wise, it's very, very difficult question to find answers for. And I clicked through a whole bunch of links. I wasn't finding
mm.
anything. I go into to ChatGPT, and I was using the GPT-4, but the GPT 3.5 chat GPT model, whatever. Like you go in there, I asked the same question. It gave me code to paste in,
Exactly.
and it was
Yeah.
great. It wasn't perfect, right? Like I put it in, and I was just like doing this as an experiment. I actually kind of know what the code did, right? But it's fine that even if I didn't, and then I ran it, and I was like, okay, now I'm getting this error, and that was literally what I put
Oh,
into ChatGPT. I'm getting this error now, and then it was like, oh, I'm sorry, change
oh my
this line
God.
to
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yes. No, I
And
had a
I
very, very similar experience.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's so fascinating, right? When you have that light bulb moment like that, where it's like, so one analogy that I like using is, having an AI assistant is like having a really smart friend who
Mhm.
always is there 100% of the time, always available, but that friend is super intelligent. They're also really autistic, right? And I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just they have a very particular way where that you have to talk to them, that you have to ask them questions, and how they respond, right? So you have to. It takes a little bit of learning around how best to interact with them in order
Mm.
to utilize them. And I think if you're not sure where to get started with AI, whether you're a builder, whether you're actually building, prompts and doing the prompt engineering, or whether you're fine tuning models, like the getting to know the limits of how to interact with these large
Yeah.
language models, starting with ChatGPT, and actually trying to use it for some real world problems, instead of just being like, hey, here are 10 prompts you can use to do whatever. Like take a problem that you run into in your job, in your daily routine, and just ask it like you would ask a friend. Again, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
um
A good sounding board.
yeah, for sure. And then iterate, right? Like have a conversation,
Mm.
go back and forth, and you're going to learn as you go about how to utilize that more efficiently. And the final
Yeah.
point that I'll make there is the kind of chat UX is again like at like the version 1.0 of how we're going to be using these things. We're going to see the these language models be integrated into products in all sorts of ways that aren't just text based. So whether that's the secondary effect of, well, I can speak to the product and then it turns it into text, or other
Mm.
interesting ways where I can create a UI on the fly that then I interact with, that
Yeah.
the AI agent. Like the place to start is with just talking with AI, literally just having a conversation with it,
Yes.
and
Yes.
learning, for your particular problems that come up in everyday life, like how you can use it to solve them.
Yeah. No, very true. And like all of what you just mentioned in terms of examples, I think I went through it as well. Like when I was trying to tinker around a piece of code and I was trying to like, get a piece of JavaScript code, and I told, okay, well, this particular API seems to not be working. I think something's wrong with it. And then ChatGPT showed me, oh my God, wait, I think I called this function outside of this. So let me just go and tweak that code for you. And then
Yeah.
it kind of like was very conversationally good. And I think that's when I kind of felt that, okay, now I get the point why people feel so connected with it, because of same thing that we discussed, the whole natural language processing part of it, where you try to make it not like you're talking to a machine, or you're talking to some sort of a algorithm, but it's mostly like a sounding board. It's mostly like you said, like having a friend and like trying to just bounce off ideas and just like get it augmented instead of like just I mean, I don't see it as outsourcing, but I think I see it more as co-creating and like trying to like build on top of what base knowledge you have, and then use this just to get better at what you do. So I think that possibilities.
Absolutely. It's a tool. Tools, that's one of the defining things that makes humans, right? Is we use
Yeah,
tools
yeah,
to
yeah.
make ourselves more efficient, to build other things. And our tools build on top of each other. It's just such
Yeah.
a powerful and user friendly way of interfacing with computers,
Yep.
that I'm just excited to see what the next couple years.
Oh
Who
yeah.
knows? I mean, yeah, I'm just excited to see where this
It's
stuff.
very optimistic.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
definitely
no,
very
totally, Travis. Totally,
yeah.
Travis. Oh my God, yeah, it's definitely exciting, and it's very momentous as well, because there's so many things that could happen just starting from now, and we're just at the beginning of a lot of good things are waiting in store for us. So yeah, thank you so much, Travis. I think today's conversation was super interesting for me, because I got to like learn this whole side of open sourcing, what it means to be in this space, build in this space as a product builder, and also like shifting gears to AI, talking a lot about what's excited me in the current times, and just like it really felt like bouncing it off with a friend, and it just didn't feel like we're talking for the first time. So yeah, thank
Well,
you
I
so
also
much.
like, it's just, I also thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Just with your last friend about like, oh, it's like I'm talking to a friend. I was like, well, hopefully I'm not an AI agent, right? Like we're having this not natural language
No,
conversation.
this
Um,
to the listeners, this is not this is not generated on AI. It's like two real humans talking to you about what AI could
yes,
do. So I have not
yes.
generated anything here. Travis is a person. I'm a person.
For all that I'm a person, and likewise, right? It was amazing meeting you, Aishra. Thank you very much for having me on, and for the great conversation.
Amazing. Thanks, Travis.